I'm Oprah as a dude, and I love you all.
Great, here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to the Reyes Reflection podcast. Please show me some love at I'm Nathanael Reyes, and customarily big thanks to Jocko Fuel, SMACKIN Sunflower Seeds, and Mad Rabbit Tattoo Aftercare. The links in the episode bio will be for exclusive deals at those sites. Today's guest has a special place in my life, not only as a friend, but as someone whose growth and evolution I've had the honor of witnessing up close. There's a special moment in life that comes from witnessing someone you know lean into growth time and time again, especially when the journey isn't easy. I've seen her rise in many forms, coaching young athletes, making waves on competition stages, grappling on a jiu-jitsu mat, and standing tall, serving our country through the Air Force. But beyond the strength and discipline, what's always stood out to me is her unwavering commitment to a deeper purpose. These days, she's pouring into others by helping them reclaim their identity by working through generational wounds. And now she's taken that mission and is a newly published author. Her debut book, Return to Your Favorite You, is a powerful invitation to heal, grow, and rediscover the most authentic version of yourself. I could not be more proud to introduce her. Please welcome the incredible Broghan Gilligan. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Nathanael. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, my friend. Time is an asset we can't get back, so I'm grateful that you're sharing yours with me today. Twice. I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit. We tried to do one take. It was on my end, and now we're doing it again. She's joining us gracefully. She didn't have to, but she decided that her story was compelling enough, and I begged her enough. No, I'm kidding.
Touche.
Let's turn back Father Time a little bit. Your roots. What's something that you remember about yourself from your New England days that still shows up in who you are today?
Good question. I knew you were going to throw me off with some more specific questions today. I would say, like we previously chatted about, my sensitive nature showed up so much when I was a kid, especially in New England. I was so in tune with nature, the seasons, animals, everything. And I find that still pops up today. I didn't really understand as a kid, that I could feel other people's emotions, and I was just taking them on constantly. And it was this downward spiral of just feeling like crap, not knowing about it. And that shows up sometimes today when I don't have my tools in place, or if I'm ever, hitting a low spot where I'm disconnected from myself. I certainly will get bombarded with the energy of others. So definitely the empath in me and my hypersensitive ways showed up deep when I lived in New England as a kid, all the way up until now. And I'm 32, so it's not going anywhere.
So were you that friend that everybody went to with all their problems whenever they were stressed? They would be like, Brogan, I'm just going to go ahead and share it. And you gave them advice, but you didn't always take your own advice. Was that you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would give, there were so many times, I would give, my friends relationship advice, especially, in, I don't know, probably, high school into college. And, after college was, that was the brink of, self-sabotage. And, people were coming to me for advice. And in my head afterwards, I'd be like, why in the world are you coming to me for advice? But it was that sensitive, almost nurturing part of me that I think people felt comfortable leaning into. So yeah, big time.
I feel like everybody has a similar experience in that, right? They have a friend, or they themselves are that person that people can lean on to and that they can share their wisdom, but then they don't take the advice. And it's always funny because it's just, again, the same cycle over and over again.
Yeah, big time.
Was there a moment in your childhood where you realized that you felt almost out of place in a way, or you just felt different? You felt like you didn't belong? Maybe you were from outer space. I don't know. No, I'm kidding. But did you ever feel like that you were out of place, or that your emotional intelligence was a little higher than others?
Yeah, well, I never really thought positively about my innate ability to feel other people's emotions, but I think there's multiple stories like this, but probably the most profound one in my book that still like haunts me, even though someone would read it and be like, that's so stupid, it's not a big deal. But for me, like I still think about it and get like choked up. But like I remember I must have been like 7, maybe. I could have been 8 years old. I can't remember. But I remember like on this weekend when this happened, I like went back to my mom's. I was with my dad for the weekend and I went back to my mom's and I was like, oh my God, like something is wrong with me. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't gather my emotions, but I essentially loved going to my dad's campground and I would like isolate myself because that's just like, I guess I was always a little introvert and which I'm mistaken for an extrovert. But I would go like fishing. I would get like Tupperware and little fishing rods and like all these little things. And I would like just like go to the pond way deep in the woods. Like I would just wander off and I'm like 7 or 8 years old. And I would like just catch little critters. And I was like a weirdo and I loved like talking to them and just like being around them. And I was like just so, I felt like I could feel them.
Yeah.
And so I took them back with me, and it was like July or August maybe, and it was like hot. Like it was very hot out, and I didn't put that together because I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I left them in the Tupperware. It was like crayfish, and I think like a couple tadpoles, frogs, fish, everything, and they all boiled to death. And
Oh,
I literally, and that is traumatic as a kid because kids care about animals, but like literally, Nathaniel, I was like crying myself to sleep. I couldn't gather myself. Like I felt like I couldn't, when you're choked up and you feel like you can't like be around people. It
yeah.
was that dramatic. And I went home and like I was just like, something's wrong with me. So like that was one of the many moments where I was like, something's got to give. Like I don't fit in. Even though I did, like I had friends, like I never really had a problem making friends, but there was that part of me that felt like I was like holding a secret, if it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very similar to you. I had a deep love and affinity towards animals. I don't know why. I always wanted to protect them. Maybe because I felt like they were these innocent creatures and they couldn't
Hmm.
really advocate for themselves. So I never was a fan of people that would squish bugs or
Yep.
rip. I've had friends that would rip daddy long legs,
Uh-huh.
and I just didn't like that. For me, it was weird, and I have a similar story to you as well. It wasn't as traumatic as that, fortunately, but I remember a summer camp I went to. It was by this lake or pond or whatever, and I saw a turtle. Now, adult Nathaniel realizes that that was a baby snapping turtle,
Right.
but child me just thought it was a turtle that I could have kept as a pet. So I took it, and those sling backpacks that we all had growing up that we put our gym clothes in?
Oh,
So
yeah.
that was the bag that we had for summer camp. It had my sunblock, it had my water, whatever. I put it in there.
Oh,
Now, I had it with me all day. I come home, I take it out. It's still alive, but I put it in my tub and I ran the water and I didn't know anything.
right,
My
right.
mom comes home and she goes, you can't keep this thing. And I'm begging my mom. I'm like, Mom, please let me keep it. I want this pet. I want it as a pet now. I
Yeah.
found it. Like we all wish that we can find that pet. Like in that movie when you see them in trouble
Yeah.
and you want to keep them. And so I wanted to keep it so badly. And my mom said, no, it's not the proper habitat for it. So the next day at camp, I had to put it back in my bag, sneak it back into camp,
Oh
wait
God.
till we went there. And I did ultimately release it, but it was a bit traumatic releasing it because I was like, I kept it, I nurtured it. I was trying to give it lettuce. I was trying to have it survive.
Right.
In hindsight, I'm glad I couldn't keep it, but it wasn't as traumatic as you. But I did also have that love to animals,
Hmm.
and I wanted to protect them, and I wanted to take care of them. Just because, again, I don't know if it's because I know that they can't advocate for themselves, that's
Hmm.
why I wanted to protect them. But I feel for your moment because that is a little bit more traumatic.
But I feel for yours too because like when you're a kid, you don't understand, and like you said, you just like there's like this like I don't know, you have a need to like fix things and take care of things,
Yep.
but like you don't have the system in place to understand that you're actually killing them. It's so weird. Like it's like a
Yeah.
catch 22, and I get that. But it's weird. Like I think I think you're like an animal empath or you're not. Like you're just either kind of like connected to them or not. But like I mean, it was like 3 months ago, no, 4 months ago, and I was like outside of the Air Force Base, and I saw like a turtle crossing the road, and the highways in Missouri, like people do not stop, because it's just like ongoing highways with like a gas station every couple of miles. Oh my God, I like pulled over because I knew he was gonna get run over, and I like got out of the car and I picked him up and I put him on the side of the road, and I thought about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's so far away from water.
Yeah.
Like there's no water nearby because he's like right outside of base, and I was like, oh my God. So I did a whole loop, got back on the highway. Like again, I'm like 32 years old, and I'm like, I pulled my car over, and I'm looking all over the place, like for this turtle. I cannot find him, and like literally, I got home that night, and I was like, I'm gonna lose sleep tonight because I can't find that turtle. I feel like he's just gonna dehydrate himself. Like
Yeah.
it's so ridiculous. Like
I agree with you on that. I feel like you either are an animal empath or you're not,
yeah.
because I've talked to people that are like, it's just an animal. What do you mean? But like for me, I've always felt a deeper connection towards them. I remember another story with an animal where there was clearly a house bunny because he was white, and outdoor bunnies or hares or whatever you want to call them, they're all brown or have that grayish tint to them. And he was much slower than all the other ones. And he wanted to be around all the bunnies. So I don't know if somebody lost him or they released him, but he was in the woods following the other bunnies, but he was always like 4 or 5 steps behind just because he
Oh,
couldn't catch up to him. And I remember I was like, I want to capture him and keep him because I know he needs to be domesticated.
domestication. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I didn't do it, and my heart broke the day
Yep.
I saw him on the road because he got hit.
I know.
And
Oh. Oh.
and witnessing that, I'm like, I could have done that. I could have protected him, and I was so mad at myself. So I do know that feeling of like you feel it in your soul
Yeah.
that these
Yeah.
animals are hurt. So I understand that completely. And I feel like that's something that we have as a child and then we take on into adulthood because
Mhm.
even now I have a deep love for dogs. Even though I don't like cats, I still love them and I would never want anybody to hurt a cat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I'm the
I'm
same
not a
way. Yeah.
yeah, I'm a dog person through and through,
Me
but
too.
the minute I see somebody hurt a cat, I'm like, who the heck are you? And I
Right.
think I've told you this. Like, I used to see these documentaries where people would mistreat pigs and cows on farms,
Mhm.
and there was something in me, and I'm not a fighter, but there was something in me that was like, oh, I want to fight those guys. I hate
Yeah.
them for beating them because to me, I'm like, that's not the right way to do it. You know, that's not the
100%.
right way to do it. And so that's something I've taken to as well. So I can feel that for sure. On that notion, what's something that kid Brogan would find absolutely wild about current day Brogan?
Ooh. Ooh. Um, hmm, absolutely wild. Probably join probably join the military.
Yeah.
I think so. Because like when I was really young, like that was never a thought, but when I was in high school, I was really serious about joining the Coast Guard.
Hmm.
Um, but I think like much younger me, where I was such a sensitive kid, I had just such a hard time. Like I really, I just always wanted to do my own thing, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I think, I think the younger version of me would be like, you joined the military, especially knowing, um, saying what I can here, especially knowing, my core value system
Yeah.
while also being in the military. She would be like, sister, what? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's probably it.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. I told you I'm coming at you with surprises. I said that.
I
I
know.
had to revamp a lot of it. So we talked about you as a child. Now we'll transition into your activity level related to physical challenges. What's a lesson you've only been able to learn through physical obstacles?
You have to know your why. You have to be completely sunken in and ingrained into your why, your rhyme and reason, and your purpose behind doing something physically. Because if you don't, and this is also, you know, a huge piece of what I bridge together in my book, if you don't, that is where of course you end up doing things for the wrong reasons, which like sometimes stinks, but there's, lessons to be learned along the way. But oftentimes, if you're not in tune with your why and you really don't have like that level of self-awareness to understand what your true purpose is, that's when things turn into self-sabotage. That's when things turn into addiction and you end up using and leveraging different forms of, maybe physical hobbies and sports as what should be an outlet really turns into like this like addictive cycle of like, I need this to survive. And it's
Mm.
because you don't know that deep like sense of why am I doing this to begin with? And I've had to learn that it's not like a cute like, oh, I learned it the hard way once doing this sport. Like I've had to. That is a revisited story that I bring back to therapy because I keep coming back to it even in adulthood. Not really recently, but I would say my last cycle of like competitive sports, I definitely hit that whole like, oh shit, I don't know my why. And now I'm here and I'm addicted to this sport and hurting myself physically, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Addiction can come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
It's not always just what you think of when you hear that word. I think intrinsically, we always think of drugs, alcohol, or something that is directly negative in that regard. But it can also
100%.
be negative, like video games, or like you said, physical activity, going to the gym too much. Like you can be addicted to that.
Yep.
I feel like I kind of was going through a similar cycle a few months back. I had a knee surgery and I wasn't thinking about the proper channels of how to heal myself. I was thinking of when's the next time I can get in the gym.
Sure.
And that was almost hurting my mindset more because it wasn't like I wasn't taking care of myself, right? Like
Yeah.
I can't go to the gym. So I have to take care of myself. I have to eat my protein. I have to maybe binge watch something just to get my mind off of it. And knee surgery is not fun. Not that any surgery is. But for me, being an active person, when you're laid up and you're just sitting there like a couch potato, it's debilitating. And it really put me in check because I was like, wow, man, I am addicted to physical activity. Like I have to find different outlets. So I started to read. I started to try new challenges.
Hmm.
And so I think, it is interesting how you say addiction because I think most people think it's alcohol,
Yep.
drugs, or whatever, but it's not always that. It
Hmm.
can be very layered and show in different forms for sure.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you brought all of that up, especially with your knee surgery. Like, and it's great that you eventually were able to like snap that and, lean into the things that you needed to heal, but also like it, physical fitness is, I think it's vital and I think it helps you show up better as a person overall. We could go into a tangent about that. I think most people know that physical exercise is a positive thing. Like, however, if you are really deep in the weeds with like a physical goal, there's typically a lot of pillars in your life that fall by the wayside.
Mhm.
So, and I remind my athletes a lot. Like, I just had this conversation last night with, I teach like a mobility class at a jujitsu gym. It is just like for grapplers and MMA fighters. And, I said to them last night, because a couple of them are working through injuries, and I have a lot of clients right now who are working through injuries from their sports because it's that crazy cycle of like, well, I need my sport. What am I going to do? I need to go to the gym. And it's like, well, actually, because you've been so focused on this, like with that, kind of addictive, like I need this sense, you have all these pillars that are falling by the wayside. So it's so important to like hone that back in and realize that like you have to rest your mind and you have to rest your body. And this is just a temporary season, but you have all these other things you can focus on. It's just hard though when you have an addictive personality. I actually, of my two chapters that I took out of my book, my grief chapter and my second chapter I took out was my addictions chapter. It was just two, both of those chapters were really dark, but I stripped a lot of what came from my addictions chapter and I put it into one of my chapters called it's called abusing healthy coping mechanisms,
Mm.
and leaning into unhealthy coping mechanisms, which honestly is really similar to addiction. But I was able to extract like the messaging and like the next steps that were needed to put into that, and that's what it comes down to. It's like you have to know if you have an addictive personality. Like I have very addictive traits, hands
Mhm.
down. I wouldn't reach my goals if I didn't. But that's also like it's also a piece of like my perfectionism that I'm
Yeah.
still recovering from, right? But when you really know that about yourself, like you really can, you can sink into that why. Like you can be like, okay, like I know that I don't have an off switch. I know I can't press pause because I have whatever genetic makeup or whatever behavioral, traits got passed down to me, and I just can't flip the switch. I have an addictive personality. Great. Okay, so I have to lean really, really close to what my why is, what my exact driving reason is behind doing this, because
Mm,
otherwise you end up getting knee surgery and then you're down the rabbit hole with some sort of unhealthy coping mechanism.
yeah.
Um, but I'm glad you brought that up because it's so true. It is so true.
Yeah, and I myself have had to put myself in check of being like, you got to take a step back
Yeah.
because there have been times where I've gone on a vacation or I've gone and done something and I can't hit the gym for maybe 3-4 days. Something comes up. It happens to everybody. And like you said, it's a healthy coping mechanism. It's not something that I'm not saying, "Oh, I need a bottle of whatever," but it is unhealthy when it can show up in different ways. And I think we just have to be cognizant of that as human beings and almost check ourselves and be okay with checking ourselves and being like, I'm not enjoying life. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to enjoy that aspect. I'm supposed to enjoy getting physically fit, getting in shape, whatever,
Hmm.
whatever. But I'm not supposed to allow it to kill me. And I think we talked about this in the previous interview about how, like, you hear these athletes go through such depressive stages
Yeah.
because when they retire or they have a catastrophic career ending injury, they don't know who they are. And
Yeah.
I think that happens to a lot of people. And then they do fall into those unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? Whether it be alcohol, drugs, video games, even. Like, there's a lot of things that we can be addicted to, and we just have to be mindful within ourselves of, I got to put myself in check here. It's okay to put
Yeah.
yourself in check. And I love that about you because that is big in your coaching style, which we'll get into in a few short moments. You're super big on knowing when to lean into energies, especially your masculine and feminine energy. I think society has hijacked the basic principles of that
Mhm.
into some ridiculous argument that it's not. What is your ground zero explanation of feminine, masculine energy for you?
So I put it as simple and as blanket as like understanding the strengths of each side of those energies. And like I kind of explained last time, that masculine energy side is like for me, that's my ability to leverage my perfectionism in a positive way because I am thinking logically about finding the solutions to my problems, right? Like
Mm,
I'm not allowing myself to get clouded with any self judgment. I'm saying, hey, like this is the obstacle. Like, what are some steps that I can get to in order to find the solution to this problem? Right. It's like really, really trying to configure my brain to be organized. And then I have this like other piece of me, which is like my feminine energy, where I'm really leaning into like the openness and like creativity of my work, but also the healing journey as well. And we talked about it, in the last interview. When I wrote this book, I had to lean so deeply into my feminine energy, and it wasn't like yeah, women rock. Like, it's not
yeah.
like that at all. It's like, no, I just, if I want to really lean into my creative juices, like, I have to get really deeply in tune with myself. And that requires, vulnerability and letting my guard down, which is really that piece of that feminine energy. The masculine energy is going to be a little bit more rigid, and that's just because it's more like being a human. It's like hitting those human checkpoints rather
Yeah.
than flowing. I think that's probably the easiest way to divvy it up. And there's so many other different like symptoms that come with the masculine and feminine energy, but those are what show up best for me for sure.
Such a great explanation of it without the societal bullshit. Because I
Yeah.
think, as I mentioned, it gets hijacked into something that it's not, and it gets conflated, and it's just, and like I said, I think just society goes ahead and tries to create these issues that are not correct. And
Not real either.
no, thank you. You know what? You stole the words right out of my mouth just because I think, in a primitive state of that, right? Like, I think humans are meant to struggle. I think they're meant to go through things. And, it's not the evolutionary standpoint of we had to go hunt saber-tooth tigers or woolly mammoths anymore. But it's now a lot of it is just, our day-to-day life. And so when there's people that aren't really dealing with struggles, they create these struggles, as I mentioned that, so that way they could feel this sense of struggle and this purpose, but it's not really there. It's not a real hill that you want to die on. And,
Right.
and I think hopefully they figure that out. And if they don't, they can either listen to this podcast or they can get coaching from you,
That's what we can only hope for,
Yeah, that's all we really can do, right? I mean, in my last interview, somebody said to me, they were like, "Hey, what's your mission?" And I'm like, do I want to help people? Yes, but at the end of the day, I think there's some people that are too far lost and they believe things that they shouldn't, and
Yep.
they think the world works one way and I believe it works the other, and hey, we'll just see who ends up at the finish line first. That's all it really
Right.
is.
Right. I feel that completely. Yeah. Too far gone is a good way to put it.
Yes, for sure. I want to talk about your coaching now. It's very methodical and it's precise. And there's a big part of your website that really hits home to me. And I want to share it just because it means that much to me. And I hope it means that much to other people who read it. It's the problem, the inauthentic self. It's long, so I'm going to paraphrase. Trigger warning. I believe that a lot of people just go through the motions and stick to what's familiar. Many people are disconnected from the truth. Those individuals that could be the wrong partner, that they may eventually divorce, cheat on, or become a stranger to. Individuals that may end up taking the identity of one of their parents only to lose themselves in the process. Those individuals that play it safe and stick to what's familiar while letting go of their deepest dreams. Those individuals end up living an inauthentic life. You go on to say that you don't judge those people. You're here to help them. You're here to help recognize their struggle. And that you yourself used to be one of those individuals that didn't know your true self. So that's why you're coming from a place of compassion and empathy and understanding. You're not coming from a place of, I'm looking at you like I'm higher up. You then go on and relate by sharing that you were in unhealthy cycles and you didn't understand what was real and that the way you were living wasn't real. You weren't happy. You were exhausted from just trying to get by. You eventually hit rock bottom, and you say that that's the best thing that ever happened to you. You had choices to make when you hit rock bottom, and rock bottom presented itself in the road as you could choose to live in chaos, or you could choose to live with a purpose. You could choose to neglect your inner child, or you could choose to befriend her and heal. You could choose to live a fake life designed by the external world, or you could choose to create your own authentic life, and you chose authenticity. My friend, that whole thing, and I paraphrase, but that whole blurb that you have there is beautiful. I love every word of it. I agree with all of it. You're not going to get any pushback from me, because to me, that's how I live my life. Everything that you said, I 1,000% agree with. The hitting rock bottom is the best thing for you because the only way to go is up. So let's talk about now the shifting into identity. What's the biggest misconception that people have about personal development that you see and you can quickly call out?
Two things come to mind with that question. First off, and we touched on this a little bit in the last interview, but I think people look at the personal growth journey and then all of a sudden when they decide they think they're diving in,
Yeah.
it becomes about other people. It
Mm.
becomes this whole shit show of like, well, my mom did this and my ex-boyfriend did this and I can't, get a job, and it becomes like a very victimhood state of like it's everybody else. And the second thing that I think is the biggest misconception, hands down, and it's a frustrating one, is that a lot of people don't end up getting on the road of self-actualization and that personal growth journey because they'll dip their feet in, and it's uncomfortable, of course, but then they'll take their feet out of the pool because they're like, I can't do that. Like it's too painful. And what the misconception is underneath it all is I believe that most people feel or perceive the healing journey as like this, running around in the forest with like a bunch of daisies and like skipping with your best friend. Like it's not. Like the healing journey is fucking ugly. It's the grossest journey ever. It's rips you to shreds. It's so painful, and it's why most people don't choose to do it.
Mhm.
So I think like two misconceptions are like most people think they're getting on the healing journey or the personal growth path, and they're really not because they're still stuck in victimhood. So they just make it about everybody else in their life and not themselves.
Yep.
And then secondly is like they think they're going to automatically feel better when they're not. It's like sometimes it takes years before you start to like actually feel like yourself and feel comfortable in your new comfort. But the healing journey is disgusting. Like it's so painful. I mean, you know this. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are the two biggest ones that come to mind for sure.
I love that. I am not a victim mentality mindset person. I don't like that mentality
Mhm.
because immediately I go, why do I want to be the victim? I want to be the superhero. I want to be the one that
Sure.
overconquers this. And I don't like that because I feel like victimhood, you can find anything to agree with your victimhood mentality, right? That person looked at me wrong. Maybe it's the color of my skin. That person did this. Maybe it's because of where I come from. And to me, I'm like, I don't know. I'm in the mindset of either you're an insufferable person or you're not. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, if you're a decent person, nobody's going to truly care about where you come from. Nobody's going to truly care about the skin that you have. Nobody's going to truly care about any of that stuff. If you're a decent, hardworking, honest person, they're just going to look at you for those characteristics. So
Hmm.
that's why I personally don't like the victim mentality, just because I think it. I'm trying to say this in a respectful way, but I'll be honest. I think it offers cope for weakness, and I
Hmm.
think it also offers you to turn away from your own inner healing and what you've done wrong.
Yeah.
You're blaming everybody else for what has happened in your life when a lot of it is your own actions. I referenced this in my last podcast with Ashley Levering. I said, you know, the amount of people that I've come in contact in my life that are in their 40s that go, yeah, but you know, my dad was a piece of shit when I was 11 or
Hmm.
12.
Hmm.
And that, I say, that may be. I'm not saying that that's not the case, my friend. But you were 18 at one point, were you not? You're 44 now. That means you had 26 years to figure something out,
Hmm.
and you haven't? You're still living with mom and blaming dad? Like, you don't see a problem with that, my friend? And, like, respectfully, I say, go into your bathroom, look into the mirror, and understand that it's you now at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And it's that you didn't do the proper things to fix yourself. And a lot of people may push back on that. You know, this will get clipped up and people will be like, what do you know? I've gone through stuff. And you and I, we've both gone through shit. You know, we've
Hmm.
both gone through our own personal bullshit. And I feel like once you go ahead and take control of that, you'll realize that you can achieve so much more within your own internal healing. But again, there might be some people that are too far gone. But we're here to talk to those people that know that there's something wrong and they want to achieve that. So
Right.
that's my hope
And I
personally.
and I agree completely with your whole point. Like it's there is a lack of accountability. Like your example of, talking to somebody in their 40s and they're still bringing up something that happened multiple decades ago. It's like you got to figure in the victim state, which obviously, like we've talked about this in chapter 1 of my book, it comes up a lot. But in that victim state, it's like you're telling me as a victim that you don't have the capability of self-soothing because you just make it about everybody else. One, two, you have no accountability. So therefore, you completely give your power away over and over and over. And then on top of that, because of all of those actions in place, you think you're special.
Yeah.
When really, really, like a lot of us, exactly like you said, like we come from shit. Like we come from, some people have great backgrounds and some people have more adversity than others. And at the end of the day, I remind people of this all the time. And I remind myself this, we're not that special. We have unique traits and we bring unique things to the table, but we are a lot more alike than we are different. And I think it's so important to recognize that when you sink into that victimhood state, it's like, well, you know what? You probably have a lot more to share with the person next to you than you think you do, but you've put yourself in a box and now you have no accountability for it. You
Yep.
know, I couldn't agree more with you. I'm glad you said all of that.
100%, my friend. 100%. Because there is more that bridges us together than what separates us.
Hmm.
And if you fall into the victimhood mindset or if you fall into society's victimhood mindset, you're just going to be further and further apart from your neighbor. And
Yeah.
you're going to think, There's nothing that bridges us together. To me, I'm like, I don't care political views. I don't care this. I don't care that. There is more that bridges us together. I'm telling you that right now. I'm
Yep.
telling you that. I can assure you of that. I can come up with 15, 20 things that you probably have a similar experience or whatever, that we can go ahead and find common ground. And instead, you want to focus on everything that we don't agree on.
Right.
That's victimhood. And, you brought up something about victimhood, about how, like the example about that person. Like the other day, I was talking to a friend and I forget how it got brought up, but I remember talking about how my parents, primarily my mother, use physical discipline to reprimand me. And she brings up something and she goes, "Oh, that must have been so traumatic." And I looked at her and I said, "Maybe when I was a kid, but not now." And you saw her head kind of look at me like all shocked. She goes, "Really? You don't experience that trauma now?" And I go, "No, I'm 32. That was when I was 8."
Right.
Like, that was a situation when I was 8. When I was 8, yes, I was afraid. Sure, I was
Yeah.
I was traumatized. I'm going to be 32. I'm not stressing out about some bullshit that happened when I was 8 or 9 years old. I'm stressing about what's happening in my life currently.
Right.
And that's
Right.
me, because I've decided to take control of that for my own healing. And it doesn't work for everyone, but that's what helps me get by personally. It helps me to focus on what I have to do and what I have to focus on in the future
Yeah.
or present day, not 20 somewhat years ago that I had no control over. Like, to me,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to cry about that. Like, and no shade on anybody that does, but that's just not me personally. So during some of your own healing, can you share some thoughts when you remembered that you were not truly yourself? Because you talked about how you chose authenticity. Can you
Mhm.
talk about when your inauthentic self presented itself?
Yeah, actually. Like first thing that automatically comes to mind is this is deep, so
Go ahead. I'm here for it.
put your seatbelt on.
Yeah, let's do this.
Um, I I broke up with my first like real relationship, my boyfriend Mike, back in 2015, and we were together for 6 years, and I figured out that I was terrible to him. Like I knew I was a good person, and I was like, why am I doing all these shitty things to Mike? Like I was seeking out like attention from other men. I gaslit him. I was abusive, which were all things that were passed down to some capacity. From what I learned, it was a lot of learned and modeled behavior. But I was doing this to him, and I recognized that at age 21. And he was an angel, and I was like, this is unfair to him. And I made like a quick decision to break up with him. And but in that moment I was like, oh, it's freedom, like I'll be able to find myself. Like I was convincing myself that like it was going to be like my big break of like getting back in touch with myself, but I was lying to myself. Like I think I wanted freedom so I could actually go numb out and like go sabotage, because
Mm-hmm.
the following 6 or 7 years, between abusing, different fitness entities and competitions, pretty much becoming like a borderline alcoholic, and then like just sabotaging men like right and left, like people I dated, short term relationships. I became a hot mess. And underneath it all, the inauthentic part of it was that I was still so in love with Mike. I just didn't have any love for myself, and therefore I didn't know how to love him. And so I energetically hung on to him until he passed away in 2023. And that was when I had to um, really let my walls come down. Like I was in a relationship at that time, and I was about to join the military, so like wasn't sure it was going to work out anyways. But I literally said it to my boyfriend at the time. I was like, I still love Mike. I'm like, what the fuck? And he was like, what the fuck? Like, we're both like, what the fuck? Like, it's just like, it was just crazy. Like, but I knew it all along. And like, I could go on a rant about it, but I lived so inauthentically because I still had like my foot in the door on that relationship, and that relationship had passed. Like, he had moved
Yeah.
on. He had so moved on for like 7 years. He found a wonderful girl. And I was still hung up, and I searched for him in everybody that I met. Like I tried to I literally tried to put like, I don't know, attributes and expectations on these men that I met, because I was like, well, they're not like Mike, so it's not going to work. And
Wow.
it never was going to work. you know? So that was like probably the most inauthentic part of my 20s was that.
Yeah.
And I really knew what I will say what I had gotten myself into. Probably like I ran into him in 2020 at a jiu-jitsu tournament, and we had a really, after a lot of negative run-ins, we had a really, really positive run-in, and it still left me hanging on,
Yeah.
you know? But I walked away realizing that everything I had done up to that point, which had only been 5 years, was just pure self-sabotage. Um, because I didn't want to feel the pain. I didn't want to grieve that past relationship, and I didn't want to let it go. It felt more comfortable to hang on to living inauthentically, you know?
Mm-hmm. Was that your rock bottom per se?
No, it was probably another like revelation of my rock. Yeah, it was, good question. It was not my rock bottom because it was a different kind of pain. It was more like I had to grieve just like a lot of parts. I had to grieve
Gotcha.
my old self, the relationship, his death, like all that stuff. But my rock bottom was definitely 2018. And that's where I really started like digging into myself. It was a healing's ugly. We talked about this. So it was
Yeah.
a rough journey because it was like I was going to therapy and I was uncovering all this shit in therapy. And I was like too emotionally hungover to deal with it. And I was still drinking a lot and like just numbing out with my friends. So it was like this like kind of catch 22 of like I was still in between two worlds.
Yeah.
And then I would say when I got more into metaphysical healing, which started in 2017, but it got really serious when I opened up a business in the metaphysical space in like 2020, 2021. That's where I really started to like dig a lot deeper with myself. And even though I still had my energetic strings attached to Mike, I was I was becoming a lot more myself, if that makes sense. But 2018 was definitely my rock bottom for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say I'm so proud of you that you took those necessary steps and you realized that within yourself. And I know you don't need a person's opinion saying that they're proud of you, but personally, I think it shows great growth that you held yourself to the fire and was like, I was so awful to these men and I was so toxic to them and I was trying to find somebody else in them because I think that happens more than it doesn't. You know, it doesn't get talked enough about how sometimes women can be that toxic person in the
Mhm.
relationship.
Yep.
And it means a lot to me, and I hope it does for a lot of men that listen to this of like, wow, like we have also gone through our toxic relationships as
Mhm.
well. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with us. It's that the other person needs to heal and that, you know, we have to go through our own healing as well. Everybody has a journey. But I think sometimes we only focus on one side of the coin. And I always like to say there's two sides of the coin for the
Yep.
coin to truly have value. And so sometimes it's okay to flip over to the other side. So, on behalf of myself personally, as a guy who's had those toxic interactions with women, and sometimes it almost we get gaslit into thinking it's always just
Yeah.
us doing it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you as a woman will sit there and go, "No, I too have done horrible things and I'm not proud about it and I had to work through it." And I'm just proud of you that you can speak so freely about it because I think a lot of people would be ashamed of that. And that doesn't seem to be you. You seem to know that that is your past, it's there.
Mhm.
It helped you become the person that you are today. And that's why you're able to give to these people because you can't pour from an empty cup, whether that be coaching, relationship wise. And you realize that. You talked about your boyfriend, I think back in 2021 or 2023. I'm not sure which one you said, but you said, I'm still in love with this other person. And
Mhm.
you both kind of had this like, whoa moment, but that was because you realized that you're not pouring from a full cup and you're not giving that person your all. So
100%.
in some ways, it's probably the best thing that could have happened because you and that person went and now did your own individual path, which is what was meant to be. It wasn't meant to be because what you were trying to do was you were trying to fit a circle peg into a square hole, and it was never going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that was well said. It's like you can't force things, and you literally cannot pour from an empty cup, and it
No,
shows, like, because you end up hurting the other person. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
for sure. No, thank you again. So you talk about how you had to do inner child work. I think that's how you phrased it. What did that look like for you?
So my like first introduction to inner child work and healing was through my first therapist, and we did a lot of different trauma treatments, we'll just say. So
Okay.
we did like EMDR treatment and things like that, and they're all centered around trauma. And man, I could like just tell so many stories about these experiences because it's really crazy and it's so cathartic. Like there's just so much that's moving through you and out of you when you're doing these different trauma treatments. But for me, I really had to get centered inside of the mind of myself when I was a young girl, especially when I had experienced a lot of, different forms of abuse. I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I repressed everything before like 6 years old. There's like like a few memories here and there when I was like 5, but um, I really can only start like retaining memories. I think at like 7 years old, which I learned in therapy as a trauma response. And
Okay.
sometimes you literally just black out in order to cope. Um,
Hmm.
but for me, like my inner child really turned into a lot of like befriending my parts and realizing that, you know, it's not just about the like the human trait of like, oh, I'm connecting to my inner child. It's like, no, like I'm connecting to the parts of who I was as a child. Like,
Hmm.
and those parts include different traits that we sometimes suppress along the way through adulthood,
Yep.
including being an empath and being hypersensitive. That's probably one of the biggest attributes that gets buried along the way.
Right.
And but that is what connected me to my inner child, and that's what's helped me through adulthood to get in tune with like the joy of like literally stepping outside and like it being a beautiful day and it being sunny.
Yeah.
Like it's as simple as that. It's as simple as like when I was a little kid and I had the sun beaming on my face, like I had no other care in the world. Like
Yeah.
just that moment.
Yeah. It was the
And we
best feeling in the world. Right. Yep.
literally just that along the way. So when I started doing a little bit more uncovering, if you will, like I went through a lot of different like super trippy workshops, like breath work workshops and different yoga sessions, especially when I was in yoga school. That's where a lot of my inner child stuff really came up, and old repressed memories, and things that were really tough to swallow. So for me, it was more like I had to create a dialogue between like my adult self and my child self so that I could continuously like bridge that gap that got basically spaced out along the way. And one thing that I do with myself often as a check-in, and I do it often with my clients, I have a little story about it in my book, is writing letters to your childhood self. It's
Mm.
like it's like having that constant communication
Yeah.
with that part of yourself. So there's so many ways to approach it, but I will say that like opening the door up to different like trauma modalities in
Hmm.
psychotherapy was like life changing for me to build that connection. There's something called internal family systems, and it's a concept that was basically developed on, recognizing different parts. So like for me, one of my childhood parts, and I call it like 5-year-old Broghan, is we all have parts to ourselves, but when I am facing a conflict or there's something that like might be triggering for me, I
Hmm.
just shut down. I shut down and I like go inward, and I might even like black out. I might just like disassociate. And it's that part of me I've had to like literally put an identity on, because that's a part of like the internal family systems concept.
Yep.
And that little identity is like little ginger 5-year-old Brogan who just disassociated anytime conflict came up as a kid. Like I'd go hide and just
Yeah.
be with myself. Right. So like, yeah, that concept of IFS was super profound, and being able to connect the different parts throughout life, because we have little trauma and big trauma in all these different stages of life. And yeah, being able to befriend your parts and get to know them and understand like, hey, we don't need to push them down. We like yeah, that part might be a little bit sensitive and it might be coming out pretty strong right now, but if I could just like understand what it's feeling, like I'll be able to help that part manage its emotions better, you know?
Yeah, most definitely, for sure. You bring up another powerful statement, and that's that people oftentimes take on the identity of a parent and lose themselves. Talk to me about that.
So trying to find the right way to deliver this. So I think that I, like in my own case with my parents were divorced and, they took different paths. My brother and I took different paths too, with like just, what we chose to do with our lives. And I think that there was a point in time where I hit a crossroads with myself where I was like just manifesting what my parents wanted for me. And it was like, living almost like the boomer life, like go get a 9 to 5 and like go get some equity, like buy a house and settle down. And
Yeah.
that's the most blanket like American dream from like 30 to 35 years ago. Like it's not real anymore.
No, it
So
doesn't work at all today.
it doesn't. And like that
No.
equity is not the same. Like it's just, it's not. So like with that being said, I had a choice and a crossroads to start like moving out of that identity, which was hard because I would get a lot of flack for like taking the alternative route. I have seen so many people in my life, people that I love, clients, coworkers, colleagues, teammates, people I've met along the way who consciously chose to do what their parents thought was best for them. And that comes up in so many different ways. It comes up in like, my dad wants me to take over the family business, or my parents want to arrange a marriage for me just because of religious beliefs. Like just so many different concepts along the way where these individuals like literally almost clone themselves to their parents' belief system and they completely suppress their dreams because of it.
Yeah.
And those are the moments where, believe it or not, like when we're holding crazy lower back pain in our body, or we're constantly getting injured, or we're having like these catastrophic things happening in our lives, like that truly comes down to an energetic leak, period. And I think there's something to be said about how our body holds things in our in our system. Like there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's really about how we hold trauma in our body, but that shows up in manifesting all of your parents' belief systems, because your body literally will live in distress if it's doing what it's not meant to do, period. So I think a lot of people live fake lives, and I see it in the military a lot, obviously. Could go on a rant about that, but I think a lot of people are like, they get into the military young and then they feel this pressure to live the American dream and especially settle down with somebody. So they end up in a relationship and then they get in this like catastrophic, crazy divorce, or, they have like an accident and they end up having a child with their potential spouse, and they're age 26 going through a divorce and they have no idea who the fuck they are.
Yeah.
Because they just followed what society thought was best for them. And they don't even know what their interests are. They don't know anything. And I think that's also something that gets passed down a lot with obviously parents, and like, so a lot of parents will push kids into the military, but also just like, I don't have an identity, I'm just going to go do this. And it's like, well, if you got to know yourself a little bit, you probably wouldn't do it, it's a lot.
No, I've had to push back on boomers respectfully, of course. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, because they had a different standard of life than what people our age have had. And I'm like, listen, it doesn't work the same anymore. Like, it really doesn't. And I try to say that, and I'm like, this guy works at Starbucks and makes maybe $18 an hour, but his rent is 4 times more than what you were paying when you first started. So my personal belief is that most people are living an inauthentic life. What's your take on that?
Oh, 100%. Like, I think most people are just going through the motions and like checking off the boxes. Like, I have so many people who come to me with like personal battles of just being like, I'm with somebody who I don't even know. Like, I don't even know this person. Or they come in with sexuality battles. Like, they low key have been bisexual or gay their whole life and they've been in the closet. Like, there's just so many people that I meet along the way who sometimes do have self-awareness around it, but oftentimes they don't know why they're just going through the motions, or why they
Yeah.
just have this job that they hate, or why they settled in a certain location that's freezing year round, but they like the beach. Like there's just so many components to it. But I think there's so much fear involved with getting to know yourself. It is
Yeah.
scary. It's scary and it's overwhelming. It's not as simple as like, going to see a financial advisor. Like a lot of the recommendations that you get on, anything involving like money, retirement, like it's really white or black and it's simple to follow. But when it comes to like the personal growth journey and just getting to know yourself and living authentically, like there is no like perfect recipe in place, for you
Right.
to get from point A to point B. It's not linear. So I think there's a lot of fear, for people that maybe want to get a little bit more in tune themselves because it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. To that, you've said that people are mirrors and they can reflect
Hmm.
themselves onto another person, Reyes Reflection. That's why I named it that, because I
I
really
love
do
that.
believe that, we can have these reflective conversations, but also I like to go ahead and challenge people to think beyond themselves in a sense. So, with that being said, people are often mirrors. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think, and one way that we show up as mirrors is, I guess, more on the negative side of things. Like when we get really frustrated with someone, like if you can think to a time where maybe there's somebody in your life, a family member or like somebody you work with, where you're like, okay, this person's like kind of nauseating and they really get under your skin.
Yeah.
Most people, they make it this like outward experience. Like it's all about this other person. Like this person's the problem. They're the bad egg. They're the cancer. And don't get me wrong. Like there's a lot of people in this life who have not done the work. And therefore they show up like assholes. However, there is a deeper layer underneath it all as to like why that person gets under your skin. And I like to use, for me, the lesson that constantly comes up in my life is like having a narcissistic boss or an abusive boss. And I have a whole chapter on it in my book with boundaries. But um, I kind of more recently had a boss who, like, he was a creep. He was a predator, and he was a narcissist. He bullied people. He was like after women. He did a lot of things that were just not acceptable, and it's never acceptable to make a person feel uncomfortable in their workspace, in my personal
Right.
opinion. And a lot of people like fell victim to it, and I would really shut down when he, got into his sexual harassment. I completely shut down, and I felt like I couldn't function. It was just really hard for me to like show up and defend myself. And I would get so mad. Like I literally had it out for this guy, with good reason. However, like he was a mirror to parts of myself that really needed healing. And
Mm.
I had a really hard time being around a person that was, a bully, narcissistic, took over a conversation, everything like that, because two reasons. One, there's a lot of people from my past that I've come across where I did fall into that victim state of that type of perpetrator. So there's healing there, and it's triggering. And then two, there's parts of myself that I saw in him. And therefore I
Yeah.
got frustrated with him, right? It's not always about like, fuck that guy, he's an asshole. It's like, well, he probably has some traits that are similar to me, right? So, that's like the radical honesty of us being mirrors. Is like we typically have a lot more healing to do, or there's old parts of ourselves that maybe are just getting triggered a little bit. Maybe we've healed that space in our life, but it's just coming back up. Or that's a straight up mirror. That person's reminding you of yourself in some way. I'm not saying I'm a predator, oh my God, but like just like some of the I have I was passed down narcissistic traits. Like I mean
Yeah.
we all have them to some capacity, but I'm like hyper aware of it.
Yeah.
And so when I see it, it irritates me. And then also it's a piece of my early dysfunction, just being
Yeah.
around narcissists.
Yeah, no, I didn't take it from the predator standpoint. I took it from the I took it from the one where you were saying about like even from that ex-boyfriend or ex-boyfriends that you've had where
Mhm.
you kind of dominated and tried to control the
Yep.
narrative so to speak. So I understand that, and when you said it, I was actually moved by it because it was like, wow, like there have been moments in my life where maybe I disagreed with somebody, or I had maybe a falling out, and you think about it and you're like, huh, maybe that's because of something I did, or it reminds me of me and I don't like that part of me, or whatever the case may be. But it really is a reflection if you think about it. It's a mirror, and it mirrors back. And then you said narcissistic and how that was passed down to you. And my personal belief is everybody is a bit narcissistic in a sense. And I said that one time, and I got so much pushback on that.
Didn't land well.
No. Yeah, no, it didn't land well at all. I said that because starting up your own business, right? Let's just use that as an example. You need to be narcissistic in a sense of, I am the best. I'm going to do this. I can achieve it, right? And it's like, it like all things in life, as long as you have a healthy balance, I think you're going to be okay. And as long as you don't let it go too far to the point where you belittle people or nobody else matters, or you have a complete lack of empathy, that's when it becomes a problem. But if you use that energy, right? We talked about how a lot of things are just energy. If you use that energy into something constructive, but maybe I said that and a lot of people pushed back on it because I was a reflection of them, right? It was a mirror. They're like, well, no, I'm not narcissistic. Like I said that in a podcast episode. I said, my personal belief is more people are narcissistic than they actually think they are. Like, they have a little bit in their own brain of they're bigger than what they are.
Yeah.
And again, not that that's necessarily an awful thing, but I just think that more people are than what they want to admit. But it is what it is.
I agree. I totally agree.
Thank you. All right. So there you go. So now I'm not sinking on this boat by myself. So thank you.
Yeah. We'll capsize together.
Thank you. What's a part of yourself that took the longest to accept, but now at this particular time, it feels sacred to you?
Ooh, good question. Took the longest to accept. Probably that I'm not a victim, right? Because I loved wearing the victim badge.
Yeah.
And I can't say loved. I think there's comfort in chaos when you come from chaos. And I felt so much more comfortable being able to blame others for my lack of accountability and taking the next steps to heal myself. It was just comfortable. It was just easy to blame other people. And it was easy to get validation. And it was easy to get attention from it. And then when I started the healing journey and I really pulled myself out of that victim triangle, and pulled myself out of weaving between the triangle, being the perpetrator, the victim, and the rescuer, it was so hard, and I felt like I almost lost my identity because I identified as a victim.
Yeah.
But now I wear it with so much pride to say that, like, yeah, we all can fall into the victim mentality, once in a while. However, like I say with a lot of pride that, like, I now feel secure and I don't need to blame others or, make anyone else responsible for my contentment and my happiness, because I earned that, even if it really sucked going through it.
Yep.
That sums it up for me.
Perfect. All right, we're going to transition into your book now. Newly published author that you are. While writing the book, did you ever have moments where you sat and wondered, do I really want to share this? Do I really want to be this vulnerable? And if you did, how did you push through it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That was probably one of the biggest struggles I came up with my book. Yes, it was the biggest problem from start to finish. Being vulnerable and owning my shit is not hard. That is not hard at all. So I can tell a story and be like, hey, like I did this, I fucked up. Like, this is what I learned from it. But I definitely grappled with being radically honest about the parts that other people played within that journey. Because in a sense, like I was brought up to keep my mouth shut. Like I grew up in like an Irish Catholic family, and like we'll keep on to family secrets until we're in the grave. Like we'll be blue in the face with a gun to our head and we're still like, no, like I'll keep it to myself. So I'm trained in a sense to like protect identities of the people around me. So I think like I really grappled with that and being able to tell an authentic story without like, selling out people I've met along the way, people that I love. So that was really hard. But at no point did I grapple with my own vulnerability. It was more just like the people around me. But the help that I got was really from my book writing coach slash editor, Anastasia. She was really the one that set me straight, and she's so creative, and like she's also really sensitive, and she can feel things, and you can read it on a page when you're not real. Like you can just read it. It's so like it's hard to explain, but I spoke so fluidly, and the writing flowed through me when I was really just letting my walls come down and speaking the truth about my storytelling, and then also speaking like the raw truth about my findings and the next steps that needed to be taken, within that theme. But when I was like trying to protect something, or I was going back into that like Irish Catholic mentality, like keep your mouth shut type of thing,
Yeah.
my book writing coach would call me out on it, and she'd be like, "You're not
Yeah.
being real about it." She'd be like,
Yeah.
I can feel it. I know you're holding something back. There's more to say here. You need to beef this up, like
Yeah.
100%. So she really extracted that from me. But that was a huge problem throughout the whole book writing process, was just being real, just being authentic. But I had no problem about being authentic with my journey. I think like when Mike passed away, it like cracked me open like an egg, and I'm like, this is like the hardest pain I've ever felt in my life. Like writing a book that I know is going to help a lot of people who are now walking that walk that I continue to try to walk through is going to change lives. And that's all that matters,
Yeah. She smelt the bullshit, right? Like,
She did. Yeah.
yeah. Like, I feel like I'm at a point in life where not reading, but I feel like I can talk to someone for 5-10 minutes and tell if they're full of shit or if
Yeah.
they're a genuine person, just because of the transformative healing within myself of being like that mirror, right? Like
Mhm.
I knew when I was being full of shit, so now I know when somebody else is being full of shit. It's almost like you can see it. Yeah. So really cool that you had that mentor in a sense to help you to make this book be exactly what you visioned for it to be.
Mhm.
And I'm sure it helped your own healing process as well, right? There's something peaceful and truly healing when you get to write everything down and purge everything. And maybe you didn't purge everything. So with that said, right, you are a layered individual. How did you decide what parts of your journey was going to make it onto this book, which you were going to keep close to the chest? Is there going to be another one in the future? I know we're still having the momentum of this one, but is there plans for another one in the future? I just want to hear.
With keeping things close to the chest, that's actually, I would say that's half the reason why my grief and addictions chapter came out of my book. The addictions chapter needed to stay close to the chest, because it was really not my story. And
Gotcha.
the grief chapter was my story, but it was also like, it's a book for another time, or maybe it's an excerpt for another time, or maybe it's just meant to be for me. But that was really more transformative in my own healing. That helped. Writing that chapter helped me grieve, and it really didn't like when you write a book. It's so like concrete how specific your outline is. Like every single like nook and cranny needs to be outlined in order for you to like write properly and execute properly.
Yep.
And grief and addictions didn't fit into that. And so there is like this vision of me, I have a book, not a book writing coach. I have a business coach. His name's Chase Tolleson. He's awesome, but he does narrative work. He does story work. And, we were kind of unraveling what my vision is of like my day to day and like 10 years. And it's so funny because I just puked it out when we were on our session. And I was thinking that like, everything that I kind of had for a vision of myself would be really centered in, the clinical mental health counseling, because I'm going to grad school in the fall to become a therapist, and then also like the life coaching elements of it and bridging it together. And I did mention that, and I mentioned having a couple of clients, but then I just like talked about writing. I was like, yeah, and I'm writing my 4th book. And then I was like, Oh my God. Like, and I think I've come to the conclusion that like in the long term, like I'm really invested in becoming a writer,
Yeah.
but I want it to flow. There's so many nonfiction authors out there. I mean, and fiction as well, but that write because they have to. They get with a publishing company and they have a deadline and they gotta go, they gotta go. And that's not what
Yeah.
writing is about to me at all. And that's where I like to like use Robert Greene and Dr. Wayne Dyer as like examples of like great writers where like they're really authentic with the process of like the writer's block and overcoming it because there's usually something in their life that they're not aligned with or feeling inauthentic about that they can't write. And I never want to get to that point where I feel like I've strapped myself down with identifying as an author.
Yeah.
I want to write completely from an altruistic place. So I think there'll be more books. I think as I mature, like as a professional, that will come in time because there's a lot of places that I think people want to expand on,
Yep.
especially with certain topics in my book. But yeah, I would say writing is definitely in the future because it just really speaks to me. It's just how it's gonna look. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Stay tuned. I love it. I love it.
Hmm.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to transition now into learning a little bit more about you in a fun sense. So, conspiracy theories and serial killers. That's something that you love or that you're fascinated about. What is your obsession with that?
I guess I like get curious about the unknown for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of the conspiracy theory side of things, like the unknown is like just exciting for me, and like I mean the fact that there's like UFOs, but also like we don't know what the ocean is all about.
Yeah, that
And
is wild to me.
crazy, and then like we also don't know like I don't know if like Biden's earlobes are legit or not, if he's a double. Like, there's so many rabbit holes to go down. So, the conspiracy theory side of things is like, that's the shit that I'll wake up at 2 a.m. and be like, you know, I'll look up anything. It'll be
Yeah.
like, how fast can like two killer whales kill a shark? Because it's weird. Like, it's
Really?
yeah, like
Okay.
I look up weird shit. Like I don't know, and like I'll just get down these rabbit holes and I'll go and I'll go and I'll go. In terms of crime, I've always been a crime girly. I mean, I was in seventh grade laying on the couch, like with the lights dimmed, putting on Law and Order SVU, just like taking my little nap, just on winter break. I've always loved crime. I studied criminal justice and I got my degree, minoring in sociology, and my concentration was in violence. So I got my degree as a hobby. It's just fascinating, and I'm one of the typical vanilla chicks out there that just loves a good crime series. So that's me.
Okay. Are you a horror movie fan?
Yeah, I like horror
Yeah.
movies. I would say the some of the gore stuff gets like boring to me because it doesn't seem realistic. Like I'm more
Yeah.
into the psychology piece of things. And
Okay.
the crimes we can't always see. Like I think movies about like human trafficking and money laundering, obviously anything murder related is like really interesting to me. It's just
Yeah.
super interesting. But when it comes to like petty crimes and things like that, I don't care. It's not beefed up enough for me.
Okay. So you like films like Seven more, where there's like a
Yes, Seven's one of my favorite movies ever.
yes, where
It's
there's
so
like
good.
a
What's in the
psychology
box?
aspect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You like that as opposed to just like I think they say like gore porn, right? Where they just like are killing
Yeah.
and it's like overkill. I don't like that either. Yeah. To me, I'm like, I could do without that. That does nothing for me. Like, I'm like, all right, the guy's dead. Like, move on. Like,
I know. Like
yeah,
yeah, I need some like mental masturbation, not just like gore. It's just weird.
yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
I'm with you. I need to really think about what's going on. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love Seven. That's a good movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good. Oh my gosh, I love it.
All right, so I'm gonna surprise you with a brand new segment that I'm doing. Okay.
Okay.
It's called Yay or Nay. All
Okay.
right. I'm gonna say a sentence, and you're just gonna say yay or nay, whether you
Okay.
agree with it or not. Okay.
Okay.
Water hits differently in a glass cup than a plastic cup.
Yay.
Rain at night is peaceful. Rain during the day annoying.
Yay.
No Wi-Fi is better than slow Wi-Fi.
Yay.
Cereal at night tastes better than cereal in the morning.
Nay.
Okay. Sharing food on the first date with the same person is not the same as sharing food after a year of dating that same person.
Yay.
Okay. Brushing your teeth before breakfast is like showering before you go to the gym.
Yay.
Okay. Thank you for participating in that, lady.
You're welcome. I like when you said you had a new segment, I instantly thought of on Barstool Sports with Caleb Presley when he's like, we have a new segment by Mamacitas. Like it's
I
like
love that guy.
He's so funny. Oh my God. That's
fucking
exactly
love
where my
him.
head went.
Yeah, I fucking love him. He's one of the best ever. He's one of the best to ever do it. I could watch every interview he does. He is so good at like being funny, but
Yep.
being inappropriate at the same. Like he's the best. He's the best. I love him. Like
Yeah.
If I could style to be more like a person, it would be him. But he just has it, so I can't.
He does.
I can't replicate that, right? I just got to stick to
No.
my lane because he's one of one. Yeah.
You gotta
As
be
are
you.
you, my friend.
You gotta be you.
You're one of one, my friend. We've come a long way from working together. It's been a gift to have you on the podcast, and I hope that more people get the chance to experience your energy, wisdom. You'll have a home here on the Reyes Reflection. You're always a friend of the show. Whenever you want to come on, when you can have the liability of sharing whatever conspiracy theory you want, I want in. I want to hear all about it. Where can people find you to work with you, grab the book, all that? Where should people go?
So my Instagram handle for my business page is at Rising Self Coaching, and then my personal page is at Brogs, Brogh with 3 S's. It's been that way since 2012. My website has a lot of information about my coaching style, but that's www.risingselfcoaching.com, and then you can get my book on Amazon either through the ebook Kindle or you can get a print copy as well.
Awesome. Yeah, her Instagram handle is the same as her AOL chat room, so you can go ahead and reach out to her.
The AIM screen name and everything.
That is going to do it for this episode of the Reyes Reflection podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors, Jocko Fuel, Mad Rabbit Tattoo Aftercare, and SMACKIN Sunflower Seeds for supporting today's episode. And to all the listeners, remember, may you live, may you love, and may you thrive. I'm Oprah as a dude, and I love you all.